We got to wait for about 3 seconds because it never seems like LinkedIn ever starts when our stream starts. So, small talk is what we're doing. Hey, have you ever thought to yourself when you hear someone in a law firm fall victim to social engineering hacks, that did you ever think to yourself, I'd never fall for that. I'm just, I'm way too smart. I'm way too savvy. That I won't be tricked, and none of my staff will be tricked ever. Well, guess what? So did the people that we're going to talk about today, that were absolutely tricked. And I mean, we're talking about some really intelligent people, people that deserve the utmost credit in the legal industry, that have been tricked. But the thing about it is that they shouldn't feel bad. These people that were tricked, they're in massive company because so many other lawyers and legal pros are being tricked every day by social scams from hackers. So today, me and Vinny and Dave, guys, how you doing today? How you doing?
Doing great.
Good. Thanks. Welcome back, Vinny. Vinny, you got this awesome little white frame around yours. We want to know how you did that one. So we're going to dissect the three scams that we're aware of that got legal pros in and around Cincinnati and some other areas, so that we all can improve our awareness, so that we don't fall victim to these mistakes, that they actually made, from social engineering hacks. But welcome back. This is No Law Firm Left Behind, and I'm Jim Gast, and we're here each week to help you and your law firm be more competitive, your staff and attorneys be more productive, ultimately all that to help you get and keep clients. Like I said, I've got Dave here and Vinny here again this week, guys. Going to be a good topic today, I think.
Yes, it is. Good morning, everyone.
Okay. So, I'm going to kick us off with a little story from about 5 years ago. You guys may or may not remember this one. Dave, I think you do. Vinny, I'm not so sure much that you will. But here we are. We're sitting about 5 years ago, in the summertime, and we get we get some alerts over some emails and some other things that some law firms in the greater Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky area, some larger ones, were victims or potential almost victims, I should say, of a scam, right? And so the way that scam went down was that somebody from overseas, I know, right? That what was that prince that everybody talks about in the email?
The Nigerian prince scam.
The Nigerian
Nigerian
prince scam, right?
prince.
Everybody talks about the Nigerian prince scam. Hey, I've got some real estate that I want to buy, right? And so these firms were targeted, that by some scammers, by basically what appears to be something similar to the Nigerian prince scam. And that is a scam where, hey, we're in a hurry to buy some real estate or something like that. We would like to send you a check that you put in escrow, and you write a check from your escrow account for us and deposit it to the seller's account. You remember this, Dave?
Yep, I do remember this.
What else? What other details can you remember about it?
It's been several years, but it was a real estate deal. It did involve trying to get monies from point A to point B. And then the initial check that came in ended up, not surprisingly, bouncing.
Cashier's checks.
And it had all the markings of being legitimate. And we actually went through and did some digging on our own, because at the time, seeing the cashier's check even had us a little bit puzzled, kind of how they pulled that one off. And I like I said, I don't remember all the details of that one, but it was very much, people that have, I don't remember. We talked about puppy scams, several episodes ago, and we talked about employment scans and things of that nature, where people will say, hey, here's a check, go buy this stuff, and then send me what's left. And then the check ends up bouncing and yada, yada, yada. And so, it's really, we're still seeing these types of scams today. But I do remember that. And that was one of the earliest ones where law firms started being targeted by things that have nothing to do with clicking on a link and installing malware. These are just pure, straight up social engineering attacks. I'm going to trick you into giving me money is basically what happens.
They're absolutely more targeted now, right? So instead of getting a generic email from somebody that you have no idea who it is, it may be something that's related to your business, right? It may be, if you're an employee, it may have your boss's name in it, right? Absolutely. Definitely the attacks and the contents of the email have gotten more sophisticated. You used to be able to look at them and say, hey, that's bad language, bad grammar. Now they've gotten, they know that people are looking for that, right? So they've gotten better at that as well. So definitely much more sophisticated in the sense of they are doing their homework on you.
And it's not that hard to do that homework.
No.
It's not that hard to find out who somebody's, direct supervisor is anymore.
LinkedIn is wonderful. Tells you everything you need to know. Law firms, especially, their websites talk about the people at their law firms.
Yep. You go to virtually any law firm and it's going to have a specific section on here's our leadership, here's our managing partner, here's our executive committee. For good reason. I mean, it needs to be there. No, it's not a bad thing. It just makes it easy for somebody to figure out who works with who and what that structure is. A lot of attorneys will have their assistants' names right there with them. And so now somebody can go to a law firm and they can send an email to an assistant that says it's from the attorney that the assistant works for.
Yep.
It's very easy to do that.
Let me add this, Vinny, real quick. Let me add this. This one that we're talking about, again, it was about 5 years ago, was an interesting one to me because it was an actual targeted scam. It was executed nearly simultaneously to all these law firms. There was probably 5 or 6 at least law firms involved. And I know 2 of them, by the way, none of them are our customers. Not to say that means anything necessarily, just fortunately, none of them were our customers. 2 of them for sure were ripped off for about over $100,000, and I forget the exact number. That 149,000 comes to mind, each of them, that they'll never get back. By the way, potentially never get back. I don't know how that worked out. We don't get to hear that information. And then one of them,
I have a comment about that when we get to how.
Yeah. I've got some interesting things to say about it too. One of them also. Just about got taken. They took the check to the bank apparently before they cashed it, and apparently did some research on it before they cashed it. And so the other ones that did cash it, what happens is the money basically for the cashier's check after they sent their money out, it basically never materialized because it was fake cashier's checks.
So, Jim, let me ask a question real quick because, we're going back in time a little bit. Yeah. You mentioned that there were several law firms involved in this deal.
In this hack, in the social attempt.
Okay. Do you recall, I could be misremembering, but at least one of the firms that got strung up in this thing was right in the middle of trying to close a real estate deal.
I think they were actually, but it wasn't related to this real estate deal though.
Okay. Yeah. I couldn't recall if that was it or not.
And as large as they are, that wouldn't be uncommon, I wouldn't think.
Right.
Yeah. These were large firms, by the way. These were, I'd say 30, 40 plus attorney firms, easy. This was such a big deal and so widespread that our wonderful executive director at the Northern Kentucky Bar Association, Julie Jones, actually sent out a communique to all of their base of members to say, hey, watch out for this. This is happening. It was a great communique. We pushed it out all over the place. It was great. So, Vinny, do you want to add something to that, or can I move on to some of the more recent ones that we're seeing?
I just wanted to, and I know you want to talk about specifics, right, of how people were
Oh
tricked.
yeah. Yeah.
But how are they gathering the information that you mentioned websites, they can even call your office and ask people questions, right?
Mhm.
And people willingly give that information out most of the time, right? But one thing that, and I'm going to touch on something that you posted, Jim, right?
Uh-oh.
And I tell everybody that I know this is people give away their information for free all the time.
Yep.
It's one thing to post where you work, right? They can find that information if you have a LinkedIn profile. So posting that on Facebook really doesn't make a huge difference. But um, you know, uh, how many times has somebody answered those silly questions on seemingly random questions, right?
Mhm.
Where did you grow up? And all these other things, right?
What was your favorite food place? What was your favorite restaurant that was closed when you grew up?
Yep. If you think about it, right, a lot of these questions are asked as for your security questions or whatever it is that. But not only that, it makes connecting points for those for
Mhm.
potential people who are trying to engineer an email that you potentially would fall for.
Yeah.
So we're given. I don't do it. I say we because as people, right? Um, I really don't like those things anyway. But um, I'm more of I keep my stuff so private. Um, but I tell folks, don't do it. Don't give your information away. Somebody somewhere is farming this information,
Yeah.
um,
Mhm.
Right.
and they will use it against you at some point.
You're
Right.
talking about my post that came out today, I think, or last night
I
sometime.
think it was yesterday, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
the day before. I can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put that on the No Law Firm Left Behind group, but you can find it on the SpliceNet site. It's a post there, and I also shared it under my personal profile. But you're right; it's an example of I did screenshots of a whole bunch of silly questions that people answer on Facebook. Okay,
Mhm.
what would you send 5 emojis that tell the story of your last day? Right? I mean things like that that we think are innocuous and benign. Right? They they like give a lot of information and marketers and hackers and marketers, maybe they're just using it to market to you. I understand they're trying to build a profile of who you are so they can better market to you, but hackers, these things aren't started by people most of the time that are interested in just having fun. They're started by, and who knows who they're started by necessarily, but they're started by some shady characters. Sometimes you just never know. So I would not tell somebody what you had for dinner last night, or the 5 that you visited, right? The 5 cities that you visited in the last 2 years. It's just, or what, name a pet name that, why don't you just say, hey, give me your last 3 passwords that you used on AmericanExpress.com. Let's just answer that. So I digress on that one. Let's talk about two more real quick. And we're again, I want to do this in 7 minutes or so, guys. Two more stories I think that are very similar. Okay. In that lawyers, I'm going to say it again, lawyers were duped. Okay. And that's not a slam, but I mean, it wasn't just an administrative assistant or something like that. It was an associate lawyer. In both of these cases, were tricked um, by impersonation
Mhm.
emails. One of you guys want to talk about impersonation emails real quick?
The idea is you're pretending to be someone that you're not. You're impersonating somebody.
The hacker is.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so the idea is if Joe Schmo sends you an email asking you to do X, Y, and Z, you probably ignore it, especially if you don't know Joe Schmo. But if you receive an email from an important person in your organization written with a certain sense of urgency,
Mhm.
the motivation can be very high, very quick. And it only takes a few minutes of not focusing and letting that motivation overwhelm you to do X, Y, and Z, which is exactly what the threat actors want.
Yeah. Yeah. And they do it through email. It's almost always through email. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost always through email.
Although they're usually utilizing text messages now.
Oh yeah,
Text messages,
oh yeah.
callback numbers. Hey, if you have any questions, call me about this.
Mm-hmm. You bet. I mean, they're really getting sophisticated.
Well,
What's
and they're playing on a couple of things that are human factors, right?
Mhm.
One is urgency,
Mhm.
right? Two is they don't the person receiving this email probably doesn't want to upset their boss or the CEO of the company, so they want to do this thing fast, right? And they're playing on the fact that they know that people are busy and in a hurry,
Right.
and just want to move things through. So there's a human factor that they're targeting as well,
Mhm.
that we have to be aware of.
Yeah, if it is urgent, you're going to jump to it more aptly than you would if it wasn't urgent, and you're going to disregard the signs if it's urgent more readily than if it wasn't. It was just, hey, do this.
And they play on the fact that most people want to appear knowledgeable. So if they put in there, call me if you have any questions, a lot of folks are going to be like, well, this is the CEO. If I call him, I'm going to look stupid,
Right.
right? So they're not going to call. They're not going to confirm. I have to take that piece out. Even if Jim sends me something, right? I always call him and ask him, did you send me this link,
Don't
right?
respond by email. That's the worst.
I
Or don't
call
touch it.
him and ask
For
him, right?
15 years, I just disregarded any of the emails that Jim sent to me, and it
Wait, you
saved
still
me from a
do.
lot of potential issues.
Wait, you still
But
do.
in all seriousness, no, what Jim and Vinny are saying is right on. So many people will try to verify using the channels of communication that were provided by the threat actor.
Yeah.
Is no good.
Yeah.
If you really want to verify with the CEO, you need to check the employee phone list that is published, or if through the actual website you can get that direct number, okay, then you could use that for verification. But you can't trust anything that comes in these emails.
No. What happened in these two situations, and I love the outcome of both of them. Um, they were gift card scams. You would think to yourself, lawyers aren't going to fall prey to gift card scams. Heck, almost no one should fall prey to gift card scams. I could
I
get.
know many people who have.
I have to tell you, it's funny. I put an eBay gift card scam blog on our website, splice.net. That's a shameless plug. And it gets more traffic than anything else, 10 times more traffic than anything else on our website. I don't understand it, and it's a pretty benign article, pretty basic little, here's what happens, here's how they do it, and more people go to it. Haven't gotten any business from it, but I'm glad we're educating. That is our business, is to educate. And so here's what happened. These lawyers, one, woke up to an email at like 5 o'clock in the morning from so-called managing partner, right? And said, hey, on your way to work today, some reconnaissance was done there, some intelligence gathering was done there. Stop by this store, and named a particular store in the area on the way, not just any old Best Buy or something like that. Named a particular store, stop by this store and get me this many gift cards. And the person did it on the way to work and responded to the impersonated email hacker saying, some questions and something like that, and responded back. And then finally, when they got to work, there was something about the email that just was off now, that they slowed down a little bit, had done the task, kind of like what you're saying, Vinny, urgency. I need you to do it on the way to work, right? That's a compressed time frame. If you don't do it then, you miss that window, right? And then had a moment to think and realized, oh, this is a scam. This might be a scam, and went to their boss about it afterwards. So that one was averted by a little bit of, okay, we get to work, we get the coffee, and we can slow down a little bit, right?
Right.
The second one I thought was really kind of cool. And do you guys know the what happened in this Target one? So we know of a
I
lawyer
heard
that,
about it. Yes.
yeah, The lawyer went to Target. Was it before work or during lunch or
Thought it was
something?
during lunch.
I think it was during lunch, right? Another impersonated email from was it the managing partner of that firm?
It was somebody big, yeah.
Somebody important, right? That they have to listen to. Get some Target gift cards. I don't know how much, the denomination. I don't know that. But what do you guys remember? What stopped the person from buying the gift cards?
The cashier.
The cashier,
Yeah.
because they're used so much as a scam that I guess the cashier knew about the scam, right, Vinny? And said, "Hey, you know there's a Target gift card scam, don't you?" And the guy's like, no. You know what I mean?
So one of the things that's, you have to think about normal behavior here from the cashier's perspective. How often does one person come through with 5 or 10 or 20 different gift cards at the same time? That's not typical behavior.
Yeah.
And so that's the anomaly that tipped off the cashier, but not the attorney.
Right.
Because that cashier didn't have that same urgency that had been created through the threat actor's impersonation email.
Yep. Yep. And these emails are good. And then look at the
Very
email.
good.
Let's talk about the subject. The name of the email is your boss's name, for example, right? But if you look at the email address, it's not. It's like a fake Gmail account or a domain they purchased to make it look like your law firm's domain, except they replace an O with a 0 in the domain.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens all the time. And
All the time.
verbiage in there, signatures are the same. How'd they get the signature? That's a good question, right?
Sure.
But they have official looking signatures.
Right.
And then this could also happen through a hacked email account too, couldn't it, guys?
Mm-hmm.
So we've heard of situations where there was a hacked email account, and the hacker was actually sending different emails to accounts payable or something like that.
So real quick, I want to add in, can we take a second and talk about risk mitigation?
Absolutely.
Because of this, one of the things that I encourage everyone to do is most viewers of the show are familiar. We've talked about cyber liability insurance many, many times. Not all cyber policies will cover this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. It's usually a specific provision in there that talks about these fraudulent activities and whether they're covered, whether they're subject to the same limitations, whether they have a different deductible. So really, like I always tell people, you can't just assume your cyber policy covers this stuff. You actually have to sit down. You actually have to read it. So when it comes to
have a lawyer read it. Have a lawyer read it, Dave.
Yep. Have somebody that understands cyber policy sit down and take a look at this thing.
Yeah. Okay. And I got to say, everyone, Dave's been on this show, been around us for 15 years. He was employee SpliceNet. Now he's always been a lawyer the whole time, but he hasn't been able to talk the legal talk and give legal advice. Dave, I love the legal advice that you gave right there. Legal, I don't know if you want to call it advice. You can qualify it if you want to. If it's
hey, I'm a lawyer. We always qualify it. Your circumstances may vary.
There you go. So we appreciate that, Dave. Any final words, Vinny?
I think the one of the keys here is that even lawyers are not above educating themselves on this matter, right? The excuse that I get most of the time is the lawyers are too busy, and they can't take out the time to do the training. Like we provide training, and I tell them it's 15 minutes a month at most, right? And it goes so far to educate yourself and be aware of the newest and the tactics are changing every day. So just because you did it once 3 years ago, right, or 5 years ago, or whatever it is, you should get trained regularly. One, to understand, make sure it's fresh in your mind, because something you did 5 years ago, you're not going to remember most likely, especially when it was a short session that you're not interested in. but educate yourself, and make it a priority. The firms need to make this a priority. And sadly, for a lot of firms, it's not. And so that would be the biggest thing to me is you can put all kinds of systems in place. You can have all kinds of insurance in place, but you don't want it to happen. So one of the better ways to help prevent it, it's not going to be foolproof. Nothing is 100% foolproof.
Right.
But one of the better ways to help prevent it is the last line of defense is the user. The last line of defense is that attorney.
Yep.
And to stop and think. And in order to be able to stop and think, you have to know what's out there. You have to know what they're using. We have to know these types of things. And training is hugely important.
I'm going to end us on this. Okay. We get it. Me, Dave, Vinny, we understand how busy managing partners and attorneys and their staff are. I understand. I can't blame you necessarily because we run a business too. We have businesses. Dave's a lawyer and partner as well in the law firm. But I can say this much. It's the old adage, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? And you have to be ready for this stuff. The highest level CEO, managing partner should take 15 minutes, 30 minutes a month and just be abreast of this. So
Dave, let me ask you one question before we break. And I know this is kind of thrown in there. How many CLE credits are required for an attorney a year?
It's 24 every 2 years.
24 every 2 years. So 24 hours everyone's required to do as a lawyer in order to keep their practice going, right? And we're talking about, even if it's 15 minutes once a quarter, we're talking about an hour a year added to that.
Not only that, but 2.5 of our hours every 2 years have to be on this professionalism, and ethics and whatnot. And so one of the things that myself and Jim, I know you as well, have gone around and done multiple times is presented CLEs that discuss cybersecurity issues. I have one coming up in November up here in Northeast Ohio.
Let's get that in the comments, Dave, just so you know.
So I'm going to have a call. I'll have a lot more details. I've got a kickoff call about that this afternoon.
Right.
So as soon as I get more details on that, I believe it's going to be virtual this year. So anybody that's interested in cybersecurity and getting CLE credit for it, there's going to be a really awesome opportunity with yours truly speaking as part of it. And
And I've given them to the OSBA. I've given them an course.
We've done these things all across the country,
all over the place. And if you're a firm that it's a private CLE, somebody come in, you put it in the comments or private message us. We'll figure out a way to get it done for you. We've already got some pre-approved CLEs that we just probably have to have them approved for this year. So, all right, guys, we're going to end on that. Thanks a lot. Great show. If you're not a member, No Law Firm Left Behind on LinkedIn, I'm going to put the wonderful link up here. It is not a pretty link. Take a quick picture of it with your phone and go join our No Law Firm Left Behind link group on LinkedIn. Plus, you can find our podcast on all the most popular platforms. Guys, have a great day. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye, y'all.
See y'all.
Take care.